Well, hello, everybody. Hello to our global audience. Today is the 25th of August, and a lot is going on in the world. A lot. And to make sense of all of that, I am privileged, honored to have with me my dear friend and colleague, Pepe Escobar, global correspondent, globally respected, understands everything that is happening in Eurasia. So I will hand over the mic to him in a second. If you like what we do, we kindly request your support. Hit the like and subscribe button. Go to Substack for $5 a month. We will deliver this quality of news inside your mailbox 2 times a week or 8 times a month. So go ahead, Pepe. Please make sense of extraordinary developments taking place in Islamabad, Tehran, and in Washington.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Z. Thanks, everybody, our audience all over, everywhere. Today, I learned in France that we have a lot of people very well placed in France who are following transition protocol, not only in French, but also in originally in English as well. Well, the mother of all trips, at least lately, has just concluded. It was, of course, Field Marshal's Asim
Asim
Munir
Munir.
trip, Asim Munir trip to Tehran, Monday until today, Tuesday. They came back today to Islamabad. In fact, they stayed at least half a day longer than usual because, well, the list of dossiers and issues to be discussed is immense. Starting, of course, with I, I like to go back to the theme once again. I would say the umpteenth resuscitation of the previously eternally dead cat, the MOU, which once again we are back to resuscitation of the MOU, if, of course, Donald Trump finally sees the light, if he has a road to Damascus moment. Nobody's betting on it, but it's possible. Well, let's try to break down what Asim Munir and Interior Minister Naqvi discussed in Tehran. First of all, they talked to everybody in power. And that includes Arakshi, Galibaf, Mohsen Rezai, and of course, people directly, the very tight, close circle directly linked to leader Moshtaba Khamenei. So, the most important takeaway, in fact, the takeaway was how Naqvi described uh, how the Iranians themselves described the meeting. The office of President Pezeshkian, he described the whole mission, the whole trip, and all the conversation as, I'm quoting, highly productive. Well, in itself, this is already a game changer because until literally yesterday to today, this was not the language coming from anybody in power in Tehran vis-a-vis the possibility of some sort of resumption of talks with the Americans. So this means that Asim Munir, wow, that's a mission from heaven, hell, purgatory, and everything in between. He had to deliver something. To start with, why Asim Munir went to Islamabad? Because Donald Trump picked up the phone and called him again. And as we have reported here on Transition Protocol, this is something that happens virtually every day, or at least a few times a week for weeks now, because Asim Munir and Trump have, they are on each other's speed dial. They have a direct relationship. Trump asked Asim Munir, go to Tehran, talk to them, try to find some sort of way out. Once again, that for me, it will look minimally acceptable. We know the limits, and the limits of everything acceptable to Trump revolve around his Milky Way sized ego. So this is going to be very, very hard, but it proves once again the desperation at the office of the President of the United States of America, even though they are on parallel tracks. Trump begging Field Marshal Asim Munir for a way out to get the Iranians back on the table, and the ghastly Treasury Secretary, former Soros asset, bankrupted two hedge funds, picture of hubris, mix of ignorance and arrogance, Scott Bessent, launching the mother of all sanctions and sub-sanctions and infra-sanctions and side sanctions against Iran, which is being laughed at all across the global south and especially by China. Well, this is a family channel. I cannot tell you the metaphor for what the Chinese basically responded to Scott Bessent, but you have a pretty good idea. And the Minister of Foreign Relations in Beijing, they were, of course, as they are unfailingly polite, they say that China is against illegal unilateral sanctions. And of course, essentially, the subtext is we are not going to comply with anything coming from the US Secretary of the Treasury. And this is the most important thing because these sanctions are not only against Iran, they not only mean American terminology, a strangulation of the Iranian economy. These sanctions are against China. The number one trade partner of Iran is China. Iran is a member of BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Iran is a member of the Belt and Road Initiative, the New Silk Roads. Iran is a matter of national security for China because of their 25-year, $400 billion energy for infrastructure pact. So this is a strategic partnership. If you attack one member, you are attacking the other one. Everybody in the global south knows this. Obviously, very few people in Washington know this, or in New York for that matter. But the most important point is that the reaction from China already came, and they basically said, we don't care. Whatever you do, we don't care. And this is basically ridiculous. Of course, in diplomatic language. Coming back to Munir and Naqvi in Tehran, after talking to everybody. Okay, what happened today? Naqvi came back to Islamabad, and guess who he meets in Islamabad? Acting American Ambassador Natalie Baker. What does that tell us? That this was not a mere, okay, let's go to Tehran, talk to everybody, and see what happens. No, this is a very calculated roadmap after a phone call by the President of the United States, which was basically charging the Islamabad delegation to go to Tehran and get something to save his face, essentially. And this is exactly what Naqvi reported to Baker in Islamabad after he returned. So we can describe this already as shuttle diplomacy. By all means, in terms of realpolitik, this is shuttle diplomacy. There can be more shuttles afterwards. For instance, in the next few days, a Pakistani shuttle to Washington, for instance. If that happens, then we see that things are changing. We can see another shuttle. We can see a shuttle from somebody very important from the Trump administration going to Islamabad. Obviously, not to Tehran, but to Islamabad. We can have another Pakistani visit to Tehran to clarify and amplify some matters. So the shuttle diplomacy is already on, which, considering where we were until this Sunday, is a very good sign because we were on the escalation ladder again. Let's say the escalation ladder now is horizontal or relatively dormant. The economic financial escalation ladder continues. But ghastly Besant, for all his rhetoric and for all his hubristic ignorance of facts and how the Iranian economy transacts with their partners all across Eurasia, not only in West Asia, but all across Eurasia, and especially with Russia and China, with which Iran has two strategic partnerships, which involve trade and commerce as well. Obviously, Besant ignores all that. Doesn't matter. The thing is, the global south as a whole will follow the Chinese lead and they will continue to trade and do commerce with Iran. First of all, because they don't do it in petrodollars or in the US dollars. They are already bypassing the US dollar. So everyone will continue to bypass the US dollar dealing with Iran. And this is untraceable for the American mechanisms. Well, how we could describe, I'll try to give you all a succinct definition of what may be in the works, or there's a very strong possibility it's already in the works. It's a mechanism. Essentially, it's the resuscitation of the MOU that cat, but under another name or under another mechanism, to reopen once again the indirect US Iran negotiations, and of course, once again, via the previous mediator, which was partially demoted by Trump, but the demotion lasted what, 2 or 3 days? now, now Pakistan is undemoted. So Pakistan is back on the limelight according to Trumpism. That's how it works, right? So we are coming back to the existing Islamabad memorandum, which we many of us call the MOU dead cat, not yet totally dead. And Tehran basically told Munir and Naqvi, yes, we are ready to go back to the MOU as long as the other side respects the MOU. So there's essentially, if you look conceptually at the whole thing, there's nothing new. And it's the most obvious thing for, I would say, for a 10-year-old. You have the presidents of Iran and the US signing a memorandum of understanding, 14 points, with bilateral commitments. So the commitments have to be respected by both sides. A few days later, the Americans blow up the MOU without respecting any of the commitments. The Iranians are fed up and they say, obviously, there's nothing to talk with this bunch of lunatics. Now, the Pakistanis go to Tehran and say, look, we understand that you were pissed, but the other side now wants to talk to you again. Are you willing to talk? They said, of course we are, as long as they respect the MOU. So this is where we are again. We keep coming back to the only off ramp in any market, in any town, in any universe available for the United States. Sit down indirectly with the Pakistanis mediating, throw Qatar, Oman, Turkey, anybody in the mix, no problem, not in an European capital, and start discussing the implementation of the MOU commitments. It's simple as that. But that's the problem. It's so simple and so direct and so realpolitik that in the mindset of the Trump administration, it doesn't penetrate, unfortunately. Okay, so we can say that the center of gravity of the whole situation moved. It is, I would say, in between. Let's say if the ball is in anyone's court, it is in the US court at the moment. At the same time, to move this ball, the Pakistanis have to keep reiterating the obvious to the Trump administration. Look, we did what you asked us to do. The Iranians said, okay, we go back to the table as long as you're serious. If you go back to the table and you don't, for instance, start discussing return of frozen assets, sanctions relief, end of your maritime blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, this will go nowhere again. So it's your decision. This is Pakistan telling Washington, this is your decision. So it all depends, once again, on what the psycho killer toddler will decide. A little recap of what, because I think it's important to recap to all of you, considering the gravity and the seriousness of the situation, the chain of events, how the whole thing moved. First of all, started to move via a Trump phone call to Munir. Basically, okay, we can say begging Munir, please do something. Uh, Obviously, we know that he is on a bind. We know the timelines. We know the pressure, the internal pressure, the pressure of the midterms, the pressure of the depletion of strategic petroleum reserves. Everybody knows about this. Even I don't know, camels in the middle of the New Silk Roads, they know about this. Okay, so uh, how do the Pakistanis describe what happened Monday and Tuesday in Tehran? Seeking a negotiated settlement. This is very important language because it's very precise. The only way out of everything that is happening is a negotiated settlement. This means diplomacy, sitting on the table. It's a horrible comparison, but this is how the Vietnam War was solved. It was diplomacy. It lasted a long time, but you had to have North Vietnam and the United States sit on a table and discuss. We are in a similar situation in terms of diplomacy. The United States has to start applying diplomacy, not have an imbecile posing as a Secretary of the Treasury, bragging that he's going to turn 90 million Iranians into beggars in the street begging for food. This is not how it works. Well, so the go between, and also in a position that is much more solidified than it was a few days ago, of course, once again, is Islamabad. Why? Because once again, they were undemoted, and now the Americans want the negotiations to be revived. We don't know for how long. We don't know if they are serious. We don't know if this is a Hail Mary pass. Of course, from the Trump administration, we can never say anything conclusively. But apparently, they see that there's no other way apart from trying to go for a negotiated settlement. So, uh, point, very, very important points. I'm trying to go from how many points do we have? Wow, we have a lot of points. I'll try to go across the basics. Point number one: the Tehran mission secured Iranian willingness to move back toward indirect engagement. Yes, of course. They were willing to discuss diplomatically with the US as long as the US was serious. So once again, they reaffirmed to the Pakistanis, of course, we don't discount diplomacy, but the other side should believe in diplomacy. So Pakistan was again positioned as the principal mediator. Okay. So there is something that is slightly more complicated, which is a 6-point mechanism that was assembled to revive the Dead Cat MOU. We don't have a definitive confirmation about these 6 points, but it's basically the main points of the MOU, which anybody can quote on the top of their heads. End of all wars. This means all wars against the axis of resistance, not only the war against Iran. So that includes Hezbollah, Yemen, Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq, and very, very important, Palestine as well. And if it gets to the table, the Iranians will be stressing Palestine. We're going to have to discuss Palestine one way or another. Okay, the MOU continues to be central. Okay. A formal Iranian commitment to negotiate directly or indirectly with Trump. So this is one of the 6 points. In fact, the Iranians they don't even need to formally pledge that they're going to discuss with the Americans because they're not establishing conditions to go back to the table. It's not even demand because it's so obvious. Look, if a memorandum of understanding was signed, let's go to the table and discuss it on the table. This is basically the same thing they have been saying for weeks, in fact. And still, the Trump administration has not understood that because they don't understand how the real diplomacy works. Only threats, sanctions, secondary sanctions, maximum pressure, etc. So, among the very, very important points which should be on the table from the start, end of all wars, or to put it in a more abstruse language, termination of military operations. Basically, in plain English, okay, let's stop all wars, all attacks against everybody in the axis of resistance. Strait of Hormuz, this will be the deal breaker if we get into deal breaking territory. How to reopen and secure Hormuz, negotiated between Iran and Oman, which is something that has already started in technical terms. But of course, it's going to be the IRGC Navy and the PGSA, the new body established by Iran, that are going to set the conditions. And everyone around the world using the Strait of Hormuz has already essentially agreed. Naval blockade, end of the American blockade. That's absolutely essential. Otherwise, the Iranians won't even bother to go back to the table. So, can we say with a degree of assurance that now we have once again a path back to some sort of bargain between the US and Iran? Yes. Very, very fragile. But there is a path once again. And this is the number one, probably the super result of this mother of all trips, Monday and Tuesday. So what happens? A brief recap on where we are. This is where we are. There's an enormous contradiction. We alluded to it a few minutes ago. Is that how serious is the Trump administration in terms of really wanting to go back to the negotiating table while unleashing this mother of all sanctions and sub sanctions against Iran via that absolutely unprepared Secretary of the Treasury? There is no answer for that as it stands. It depends on the next American moves. But just to give an example to all of you, let's assume in the next few days, Chinese companies or Chinese banks are sanctioned by the US Treasury. Then that collapses everything almost immediately. Very, very important. So far, Besant has not gone into this territory. This is a minefield. And even if he's stupid, he should know it, or at least people around him should know it. So it's very okay. You can issue threats against the whole of Eurasia, the whole of Africa, everybody that does business with Iran. If you do business with Iran, we're going to expel you from the U.S. dollar system. Okay, a cynic. Let's say an epigone of the original Greek cynics would say that the whole planet now is throwing parties and popping champagne. Wow, that's great. We're going to be out of the US dollar system. It's exactly what we need at the moment. Guess what? This is what everybody is saying everywhere in every latitude. So these guys are sufficiently stupid to throw a system of sanctions which will force, direct, or seduce the absolute majority of the planet to say bye bye to the US dollar system. This is the short headline to what Besant is bragging. Okay, we have not gone to the nuclear dossier because this, once again, is going to be the last big thing to be discussed, assuming they go back to the negotiating table. And of course, Iran has already, I would say, intimated via very public figures that if they are attacked again by the Americans, they could immediately leave the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And after that, all bets are off on what they can do. And then we enter this very complicated discussion on the possibility of the nuclear doctrine of Iran being tweaked, to say the least, or turned upside down, any way you want to see it. So, what we should be watching in the next, let's say, until the end of this week, in the next 3 to 4 days, until the end of this week. Nothing happens usually during the weekends. If Trump starts to talk about Munir by name or refer to Munir in his Truth social posts, or Pakistan, or Iran, or negotiations, or the Islamabad framework, or the Dead Cat MOU itself. So if we see a Truth social post referring directly to all of the above, this means that he may be considering, okay, let's give some legs to this Munir trip. Let's see what else can he get in terms of Iran concessions. No, there won't be any more Iran concessions. The Iranian concession was actually to receive the Pakistani delegation to tell them what they have been telling them since forever. We don't discard diplomacy, but we have to go back to diplomacy if the other side is serious. So then, after that, assuming this goes on, we're going to have some sort of roadmap, and this is not going to happen in the next few days. Maybe, okay, could start next week. A series of implementation steps, a sequence, guarantees from both sides, etc., a timetable, you name it. We're still very far away. But if we see steps going this direction, means this thing has legs. So NPT, let me see if there is an important, okay. Any committee act, any parliamentary scheduling of an NPT withdrawal measure. If that happens, this means that the resuscitation of the Dead Cat MOU is, then it's really gone. Then there's no more serial killing or serial reappearance of the dead cat. The cat will be totally dead. This means Iran starting to discuss at the Majlis, the parliament, the possibility of exiting the NPT. We're still very far away from that. So, in the end, what do we have at the moment? A peace deal? Obviously not. Very far from it. What we have is the architecture of a possible off ramp if, I would say, a conglomeration of Zeus, Poseidon, Aphrodite, everybody instills some sense into the mind, into the hubristic mind of Donald Trump. Well, that's a lot to ask, but there's no other way. Then we can be slowly moving towards the implementation of this architecture, which is not much different from everything that was discussed before the signing of the MOU, and it was supposed to happen after the signing of the MOU during that 60-day period that expired last week without anything happening because the Americans simply blew it up, right? So, can we say that Iran is making concessions? No, because they didn't make any concessions. The only concession that they might have made is that, okay, we would consider talking to the Americans again if they are serious. This is the short headline about all that. So, in a nutshell, this trip was groundbreaking. It was very, very serious. The dialogue, as the Iranians and the Pakistanis said, yes, we talked to everybody, and it was constructive. The fact that the interior minister, when he comes back to Islamabad, goes to talk directly to the acting U.S. ambassador. This means this is no joke. But we're very far, very, very, very far away from the possibility or even an indirect return to the negotiating table by the US and Iran. So we cannot say that Iran is extorting anything out of Pakistan as mediators and out of the US as enemies. No. There was an exchange of messages, there was the reopening of a channel. And once again, the most important thing, if this thing has legs, the ball is once again in the Trump administration court. Okay, Mr. Z, back to you. Sorry, but I went overboard because I was trying to get some details re-emphasized to our audience. Please go ahead.
Well, you made an excellent summary as always. I just want to add a little bit to the
Of
edges. but those
Of
are
course.
significant details. You and I talked about a very significant communication that took place while Asim Munir and Mohsin Naqvi were in Tehran came directly from the office of Wang Yi. You remember, we discussed that. It's very significant.
We discussed.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
do you want to go ahead and emphasize
No, no, no. Go
that part
ahead,
of?
Mr. Z, because this is important information that surfaced only what, an hour ago or so. Uh,
Correct, correct. Only an hour ago. Very honored to have the trust of the people in the room with that information because it's so serious. And the information was the message from Wang Yi's office conveyed directly to Mohsen Naqvi and Asim Munir was uh, China is 100% behind you. China will be supporting all the decisions that you make between yourself and Iran to essentially tell the Americans go and take a hike. I'm using polite terms.
Very
Yes, very
politely,
polite.
of course.
Yes, yes. And this was according to the way that I received this from the person who was in the room, was that a big significant boost to the talks between Pakistan and Tehran, and they were energized by this message, and they said, and between them they said, well, we will do everything within our ability to accommodate the United States, but if push comes to shove, we are going to shove the US out, and we are going to form our own union with China. And we are going to implement a program. I mean, it's not in the brief, so you did not read it, but I heard it. The message from Tehran was the following: if the United States in any way succeeds in suffocating us, meaning Iranians, we are going to suffocate the rest of the world. Not a drop of oil is going to go out from either from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, from UAE, any place, because this is all under our control. Very significant warning also was issued uh, directly, not indirectly, directly to Trump, that you try putting this maximum economic pressure so that you can squeeze us more. No, it's not going to work. We have finally extended our hand, take our hand, and move towards peace. You don't want to move towards peace. You're not going to see a drop of oil move in international commerce. Not a drop of oil coming from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, any place else. I mean,
This is what
just
this is what
devastating.
This is what Mohsen Rezai, Mr. Z, has been saying for a while now, virtually every
It,
day. Okay.
he has been saying that, but I can report to you that it was communicated, it was directly communicated to the Pakistanis that
To the Pakistan
take this
delegation.
back. Yeah, take this back to Trump. This needs to go back to Trump. You're not going to see a drop of oil moving anywhere in the world if you're going to suffocate us. Not a drop of oil. So how long
Yeah,
is
of
that
course.
going to last? For Trump, even his stupid mind should understand that. I mean, difficult to say what gets into his stupid mind, but this needs to. I mean, he needs to understand, and I think Asim Munir will make him understand that. So that is one part. The other part is this: that if you continue to escalate, we are going to get out of the NPT, and we are going to move towards the next stage. And from my understanding, from my reporting, they have already moved towards 90% enrichment because Mushtaba Khamenei gave them the green signal.
But okay, well, very important, Mr. Z. This has not been confirmed by any top power in Iran. This is a state secret. There's the possibility that they are contemplating get to 90%. I think this is we have to be careful on, because this is the sensitivity is gigantic. They have the technical know-how to get to 90% if they want, just like that. There are many specialists who have confirmed that, including Ted Postel at MIT, he did a absolutely fabulous analysis over and over again of how Iran can do this in 2 weeks easily and assemble anything they want in a matter of 2 weeks. They can do that. And of course, experts in the US, they also know that. The problem is these experts are not inside the Trump administration. So no wonder the leadership in Tehran has to keep giving this indirect, very, very hardcore messages to see if it lands on the 4-year-old psycho toddler. So far, no way. But this is not the most important lever that they have. They want some sort of diplomacy, if it's possible. They know it's virtually impossible, but they are still betting on the possibility of diplomacy, even though this administration completely destroyed diplomacy. If everything fails, and if everything after this trip, uh, Monday and Tuesday, fails, first thing will be exit from the NPT, which is something that the Majlis can approve just like that. And then all bets are off. Then it's up to them to decide what they want to do with it. And of course,
Well,
the whole planet will be watching. Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, a key part of our reporting is the inside channel that we are honored, privileged, and blessed to have from people who are making decisions. And
Hmm.
that is what we have emphasized to our global audience. And that is what we bring as we confirm ourselves that that information is true. And so far, our batting average is 10 over 10, which means we have not really missed anything. So when I made that statement, I
Mm.
confirmed that not once, but multiple times, not only from the Iran side, but also from the Pakistan side, that Moshtaba actually greenlit that decision. Moshtaba greenlit that decision that go ahead and enrich to 90%. Now, I did not say that they actually executed that decision, but it was an okay from him that previously was not approved. Previously, his father had not approved that, and he
Exactly. His
himself was,
father never approved it. Yes.
yeah, and he himself was considering that. He was considering this move for a long time. I mean, since he ascended to power. So our reporting has to be precise. He said, "Yes, as far as I'm concerned, okay, you can do that." Now, it does not mean that the technical people in charge of that have actually made that happen, but it is an okay from his side. So, but the other thing I can say, which is very significant, is that Iran is very determined. I mean, as determined as you can possibly, be in human terms, that they're not going to tolerate any further escalation from the United States.
Escalation.
They are going to
Yes.
hit back they are going to hit back in a very, very decisive manner. And they have many, many steps in that. One step is getting out of that NPT. The other step is confirmation that enrichment has taken place to 90%. Another step could be that okay, we have deployed it on a nuclear device and we are ready to detonate. Another step could be okay, no oil comes from when you're suffocating us economically, we're going to suffocate the rest of the world, including yourself, which is the further depletion of the strategic petroleum reserve down to the rock bottom. So Trump is trapped again and again and again, but he is so stupid, so psychotic, malignant, and in the influence of the global Zionist that he gets a glimpse of it sometimes. So he calls up Asim Munir and says, would you please find me an off ramp?" And then the moment the off ramp is provided, uh, he's again consumed by the pressure of the Zionist and then withdraws. So this is the last. I mean, I hate to keep on saying that this is the last chance. Literally, we are down to the last chance.
Hmm. That's
Either
what
he
it looks
takes this,
like. Yeah,
yeah,
consider
either
the
he takes
seriousness
this.
of the trip and what was discussed this day and a half. Yes, it is the last chance. Absolutely. And
The
of course,
fact that
considering
Mohsin
the
Naqvi, yeah, I mean, the moment he
considering the
arrived
time.
in Islamabad, he went to this U.S. ambassador.
Okay, exactly. And considering the timetable, this is late August. Soon we're going to have the UN General Assembly. The depletion of the strategic petroleum reserves is any time now. There are all sorts of projections. And of course, then it's going to be only 2 months before the midterms. So something has to happen uh, so he can brag that he started a process or whatever. So time is, and once again, we always need to remember everyone. Well, everybody already knows. Tehran runs the clock. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Tehran runs the clock, and Islamabad is the center of gravity for that clock. U.S. Trump stupidly thought that he can bypass Asim Munir, he can bypass Pakistan, Islamabad, and he can go to Qatar, he can go to Oman. And actually, he made overtures in that respect, only to
Sure.
be told by Iran, no, 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 we are only going to talk to Asim Munir. We are only going to talk to Islamabad. So he's back talking to Islamabad. And his economic maximum pressure did not impress anybody. In fact, it just made them more resolved.
Okay, shall we wrap it up, Mr. Z?
Please,
Please go
please,
ahead.
please go ahead.
No, no, no. I'm
Go ahead.
okay. I'm okay. I think I did my best to summarize in what 20 minutes or so the most important points of this trip. And once again, the ball is in Trump's administration court. What they're going to do in the next few days will be essential to determine: are we going to have some sort of diplomatic conversation going on, or that's it? It's going to be escalation ladder all the way. Once again, it's a dire contrast and a very dangerous contrast and a clash of pathways. But at least this last chance saloon yesterday and today may be, we in fact we all hope that this could be something meaningful. Otherwise, well, the global south has already made up their minds, most of them. After the announcement of this maximum pressure, mother of all sanctions and all that, everybody knows who they're dealing with. And there will be more and more moves by big players, medium sized players, mini state players all across the global south to find new alliances and obviously to eventually escape the US dollar international system, which was basically encouraged by the US itself.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, one word you just mentioned, Pepe, and I will repeat that because it encapsulates everything. Last chance saloon.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, last chance saloon. So thank you, everybody, our global audience. We really appreciate your support. We will be back again tomorrow with our dear friend and colleague Larry. The three of us will be here to give you a further update. We promise you that we will give you the news that moves the news. You will never find it in corporate media, even if they have access to it. Rarely you're going to find it in independent media because they don't have the access. We are honored to have the access, and we are honored to have analysts of global reputation such as Pepe to explain to you what it all means. So please hit the like and subscribe button. Go to Substack for $5 a month. We will deliver twice a week this quality of news inside your mailbox. So we shall see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. See you tomorrow.